they were able to take me in. I guess I had another one. So I'm having a flurry of these seizures, all the way to the hospital. They take me to the neurologist center. And again, I think I have another one in front of the neurologist, specialist. And they're like, okay, well, these are so dangerous. We have to basically put him in a medicated coma. No, I'm really just
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Screen with Gramajo, the podcast where we unravel the stories, insights, and secrets of top-tier artists, avid collectors, innovative builders shaping the digital frontier, better known as Web3. I'm your host, Gramajo, an avid crypto enthusiast that's been in the space since 2012. Yeah, so this week's episode is with Brennen. He's a creator and co-founder of Tavern, which is trying to challenge or create a digital alternative to Twitter Spaces, which I feel is like a really untapped or going to be an evolving space. And definitely Tavern is one of the big players in this like Web3 version of it. Yeah, Brennan's been in the space for quite some time as well. He's an OG. He's been building and iterating companies and products for quite some time, specifically in Web3 as well. So he has a lot of insight into some of the challenges with being a Web3 builder and founder. And he's also, had some personal stuff get in the way of some of the stuff he wants to do. So, yeah, looking forward to kind of diving in. Hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks.
Thanks again for doing this. I know Humpty, I know he has something later on today. So I think we'll do if anyone wants to transition to his podcast after, we'll try and wrap it up before that 10:30 start time, I believe. So, yeah, man. So today's about you and Tavern. I think Tavern. So me and you were talking in Tavern, in May. And time flies. When I initially asked you to do this with me, but I usually do my content schedule 3 months in advance. So I was kind of booked up when I had asked you about this. So we're right on time, even though it was late.
I mean, a lot has changed.
I know
since May. So it's kind of interesting because literally, I am a completely different perspective than I was back then. So, which is very interesting.
Is it okay if we talk about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been very public because I kind of live in a public narrative way.
Yeah. So I think let's just go there, and I think I might just dive into it, like into that part, what happened in July with you, because like you said, you're building in public, but I think it does kind of, I'm sure it changed a lot for you. So yeah, who is Brennen? Of course, dox yourself as much as you'd like.
Sure.
And kind of how long you've been in the space.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go all the way back. Maybe college is the best place. So I graduated in 2010 with like a economics finance major with a minor in computer science. But I always wanted to build like trading bots for basically financial institutions. So like I had an internship with Credit Suisse in Singapore, but then the like 2008 market kind of fucked up a lot of like job opportunities there. So I had an opportunity to go work for Booz Allen, which is like a government contracting consulting agency, to be a software engineer there. So I did that because they also paid pretty well. I was like, oh, this is pretty dope to be out of college and getting a pretty decent paycheck. But the licensing to basically to get the secret clearance took a really long time, and it was basically estimated for like 6 months. So I really didn't have much to do during that time. And 2010 is when like The Social Network came out. I don't remember that movie, but like, it's about Mark Zuckerberg and sort of like, the building of Facebook, early on. And I had been on Facebook, obviously, but I didn't really know the story. And I had heard of Y Combinator and Hacker News tangentially from some other people, like in 2009, like my senior year. And kind of had broadcasted it. But anyway, so like I kind of got stuck into this founder bug where I was like, oh man, why am I working for Booz Allen? Why am I not working and building myself? Like I could go build some cool stuff. And so I had met two other colleagues at Booz Allen. And at the same time, we were all, one of them already had his clearance. One of them was waiting just like me. And so we just started playing around, like me and one of the guys, Hunter, we would actually literally book meetings to talk about like our projects that we were going to be on. But really it was just the bullshit and think of ideas that we can go work on. And then we would all three work after we got off work on like different ideas that we thought were going to be really good if we were to quit and go do that. And coincidence is my mom actually had cancer for a really long time, and she passed away in August of 2010. And we're originally from Austin. So I during that time I was still waiting on my clearance, and I told these guys, I was like, you know what, I need to go back home and like help the family a bit. And I'll work, I'm just gonna quit and go work on work on the startup. Like, I'll just go do that. And they were all like, okay, well, we'll just quit too. Let's just go do it. So it was kind of funny that sort of kicked off us all three quitting and going and working on some of our own projects. And in the first one we called Qlobe, QLOBE, which, hold on, let me find a video of it. But actually it changed, but I'll find a video that we made. Anyways, the idea was to build, again, a social network, but it was built on Blue Marble, which was open source photos, like basically Google Earth, but it was an open source variant of that, which actually came from NASA. And one of the guys, John, was working on a project for it. And he was like, yeah, we could do some cool like 3D modeling stuff on it. And so we worked on that, found out it was really expensive and hard. We did inevitably raise like through some friends and family, like 100K. They're all like, we split it up. We're like, okay, we have 100K to go like build something. And we iterated on so many different things. I mean, it was like truly we had, a shitty house in Austin, not near downtown, like outside Austin. I had like Smurf carpet, and we just built a whole bunch of stuff. But one of the things we built was this. I felt like eBay was not a really good site for a bunch of stuff. It was really slow, it was tedious, and people wanted like really fast and quick. And I saw that YouTube, obviously at this point, had taken off. I was like, people should just upload YouTube videos and like pitch their products, right? A lot of like QLTV was back in the day. But it's like, peer-to-peer kind of thing. So we came up with this thing called 5-min bids, which was you had 5 minutes to pitch yourself. You're the only thing on the network for 5 minutes in the day. And we told you what your spot was. And you would upload a YouTube video that basically pitched for 5 minutes, whatever you were selling. And obviously, people have to bid on it, and you only have 5 minutes to bid. So it was like a really quick bidding system. And I didn't want to use PayPal because I felt like PayPal was, clunky and old, and it was connected to eBay. And I was like, let's go find another electronic, like another digital payment experience. And that's when I had found Bitcoin's white paper posted on Hacker News. And I just started going down, and I was like, oh my God, this is the future. This is fucking awesome. I'm a huge gamer. So I had a gaming rig that could easily mine it. And I think at that point, even in 2010, the faucet was still giving out like some significant amount of Bitcoin. Not over one, but it was like half a Bitcoin or something like that. So we started experimenting with it, and had an opportunity to buy some local Bitcoins in Austin. Austin was a pretty good fertile ground for Bitcoin, and we started implementing it into the app itself. But our mistake was that, one, from a consumer perspective, Bitcoin was still really, really hard to use in the confirmation process. Again, the bids were 5 minutes, but to confirm, each confirmation takes basically 10 minutes for each block. And you needed a certain amount of confirmations to guarantee that the bid happened. So we were like, oh shit, this isn't actually going to work for the type of bidding we want to do. It's not a quick payment system. It's actually a very long-winded payment system. So we decided to like roll that back and try and look for something different. But that really got me hooked because, again, I graduated with economic finance and computer science. So the cross section of all three of those things really got me hooked on these new digital electronic payment systems, right? These digital cash. So I started digging in, found colored coins that were getting processed, and like the idea of connecting other digital identity or digital contracts to Bitcoin, and these transaction payment systems, which inevitably I would call as now ordinals. But that got me hooked up, and I had followed the forums. Ended up inevitably seeing Vitalik's contributions, and when he launched Ethereum, I was super sold. I was like, this is really cool. Now I only threw in one Bitcoin. I should have thrown in a lot more. And basically, one Bitcoin at the time in the pre-sale gave you 2,000 ETH, pretty much. It wasn't exactly, but I think it was a little less than that. But yeah, so got into that, and it was like the first ICO, right? It was like, give this dude who looks like a giga brain person your Bitcoin and hope that you get a wallet full of Ethereum. Now, I mean, that was literally the black hole. But at the time, I wasn't really using. And I mean, I had tried to push and use Bitcoin wherever I could go because, again, I still inevitably did not realize that it would become so deflationary. I thought it would become a peer-to-peer cash system. So I try to use it everywhere I can. I talk to friends, family, retail, everywhere I could go to try to spend Bitcoin. There's sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But I did spend quite a bit.
That was also like the meta
yeah,
back then too. Like I remember vividly, it was like spend your Bitcoin to give it utility.
Yeah.
Like that was like the flag everyone was pushing. I don't think anyone was really looking at Bitcoin as, I mean, I think people were looking at it for like a holding value, but I don't. Yeah, that wasn't like that's kind of why I laugh a little bit when people are like, oh, like I would have never spent my Bitcoin back then. I'm like, man, you weren't there back then. Like
yeah, exactly.
I bought
yeah.
VPNs with my Bitcoin. And looking back now, I'm like, that's the most expensive VPN,
yeah, dude.
VPN like year that I ever paid for because it was so much like, yeah, but it just wasn't like the meta back then at all.
Dude,
I
bought a TV from a friend who never sold his Bitcoin. Still don't think he has, but like the most expensive TV. I was like, can I buy this TV from you? But like, I'm only going to give you Bitcoin. And they were like, are you serious? I'm like, please just let me give you Bitcoin for it. That was the type of deals I did. I was like basically junkyard buying things from friends using Bitcoin. So it was great. But no, 100%, right? Your VPN, it was probably thousands of dollars for a time period. Simultaneous, I caught obviously the crypto bug, but at the same time I still caught the founder bug. I did end up working for a bigger startup called Crimson, which got bought by an advisory board, and then left that. This is like 2012 era, to this company called Civitas, which was like a higher education software AI company. Left that to go work for this company called Cake, which ended up buying out from Cisco, the food conglomerate. And I'm just kind of jumping around, and I'm never staying long enough to like realize their exits. It's one of those things where I'm like, oh, this is really fun to work on. Just doing full stack engineering. At the same time, still trying to develop, a product for myself. One of those products was called Bunches, which was a higher education, kind of like a supplemental learning tool, which was very social in nature. Again, another social network. I couldn't get out of social networks for the longest time. They're so fun to build. So it's like one of those things where it's like, I just want to keep building fun things. Inevitably, and again, still building in Ethereum. So when Geth dropped and then Solidity dropped for building contracts, I started playing around with that. I think that's in 2015, early 2016 era. And met this friend. Met this guy. I was sitting on this app called Party.ai. And the idea was to build like, remember when chatbots in like 2016 were getting like really popular, like the old school chatbots where you can kind of programmatically insert like steps that to do certain things. It wasn't anything like ChatGPT or LLMs today, right? That was like the earliest form of like when AI was really cool to develop with. I was like, oh shit, I'll jump in that bucket and try to do something. And I wanted to build like a AI that helped you plan a party, like would ask you what type of venues you want, obviously your location, the type of services you want, food and do catering, invitation list, all that type of thing, all done through a chatbot, which seems really easy, but it was actually incredibly hard. So I had this thing called Party AI. A guy hits me up at the end of 2016 and just sends me a thing that says like, hey, you own this Party.a. Are you willing to sell it? And I was like, oh, cool. No, I'm not willing to sell it, but like, what are you working on? And he gives me his background. So he was one of the first employees of Pebble, the smartwatch company. And they had gone through Y Combinator and they're selling to Fitbit. But he has cut out a core of what's called Pebble Core, but like had cut this out of the IP purchase and was trying to do something with it, like something social. And he was just like looking around for some things he could do with it. So me and him started working on some stuff. Inevitably realized that part of AI was not. I was basically telling him like what I was trying to do was really hard. And we figured like, okay, so this is getting into early 2017 and crypto's kind of back, like as in like it started popping off everywhere. And so I tell him, I was like, hey, do you know about Bitcoin, Ethereum? He's like, oh yeah, I've heard of it. I think I have a little bit of Bitcoin. I think I bought some Ethereum too, but he wasn't like super deep as I was. I was like, well, I've been experimenting with these smart contracts. I think I have, some interesting ideas that we can play around with. And also no one's building hardware because he's coming from the hardware space. It's like no one's building consumer hardware that we can connect to these smart contracts. He was like super engaged and interested, and he had some hardware buddies that were pretty interested. So we started building this thing that we inevitably called Elementop, which was the original company. That's like spelled out like LMNOP. And we basically started building this wireless network, decentralized wireless network, like a mobile virtual network provider, where we would rent space. So they still had contracts from their Pebble Fitbit days, like Pebble before it transitioned to Fitbit, with AT&T, where they had enough of the network that they could actually use and consume, and people could pay for it. So we basically wrapped the rest of their network up and put it behind a smart contract and Oracle system that could like ping, AT&T and get the data for the SIM card, like using eSIMs. So people could buy data through an eSIM or our hotspots, which we call nether devices, in this cool, really meaningful way. Like my grandfather ran one in like the middle of Texas somewhere out, and like it worked. So we tried to do this. So all of 2017, we like built this kind of cool network and these devices, which are really retroactively like using like off the shelf devices, and tried to raise a bunch of money, tried to talk to a lot of the different telco providers to try to, again, rent more space because we were basically running out of the network that we had obligated through with AT&T through Pebble that he was able to get. But no one would give. Again, crypto was still, from their perspective, was like illegal in a way. It wasn't illegal, but like for them, it was like Silk Road went down. It was, Ross Ulbricht, right? I actually knew some friends who knew him at Westlake. Kind of sensitive topic, but so the whole idea is that everyone still thought it was pretty legal in 2017. It's not like today where it feels much more commercialized and kind of more or less government approved. So everyone said the FCC is going to shut you down. You basically have this like perfect, what would you call it? Shadow network, because no one really technically knew who they were. They're just addresses paying for data. And as long as you didn't put like your personal shipping address to pick up the SIM or register an eSIM, which you could get anywhere, then no one really knew who you were. Like technically the FCC and the telcos could block the SIM from accessing data or communicating, but it really was this sort of like kind of underground data network, which is kind of cool, but it's nothing illegal. I mean, yeah, people could use it for nefarious ways, but they can do that with any phone, really, if they wanted to. But yeah, we couldn't raise money, couldn't get telco contracts. And so we started looking at what are other things. I really wanted to stay in the crypto space. And I liked what we were doing. but my partner really wanted to get into financial services because he just felt like all these funds that were happening, because he was really tapped into the VC world. So he saw all of his buddies all creating like these crypto funds. He's like, oh, let's go build. We know more about crypto than they do. Let's go build them a bunch of tools like as a SaaS product that we can just sell to them and make money or whatever. And so that's what we did. And that we ran from basically 2018 and then raised some money from Polychain in 2020 to continue doing that. And we personally used the tools to trade ourselves. So we kind of prop traded our own money that we were raising, which was pretty profitable and pretty good until 2022. And we hired quite a bit of people at this point, a lot of them trader-based stuff. And I had gotten pretty bored. I get bored pretty easily on different products. I was like, I don't want to build any more financial services products. This is like super boring. I also got really tapped into nouns, really tapped into NFTs, and loved the idea of DAOs, sub-DAOs, the idea of these newly conformed like groups of people. I would just call them cults. Coming online and everyone having their digital identity backed by these NFTs or these digital assets. And it really felt very native to me. It felt like something that I was like, this is the future. This is what I want. Because is also like this gamification and like my idea of like, I have a gamer identity. And now I have this crypto identity and it's backed by the things I purchase and use. And like now I actually have a voting tokens in this really awesome DAO. And I was like, the one thing we don't have is a really cool decentralized platform to communicate, because we were using a lot of Discord, obviously transition that to Farcaster, or Twitter, random Twitter handles, right? So I was like, well, I'll just go hack out this thing, which I obviously inevitably called Tavern, that allowed people to, communicate in an open, decentralized way that could be really good for nouns. And started hacking this out, got to the point where I felt like it was reasonable. And so I went back and was like, hey, team, I want to go build this. Would y'all take an ownership stake and give me money to continue building this? And took a while to kind of come to like a yes answer. Like, yeah, this actually seems pretty profitable. We can do that. And so I was able to allocate some funds to it, not a whole bunch, but enough to like spin up a design, like contract out some design team, spin up like one engineer from a contracting side to help me do some of the scale stuff. And this was in 2020, late 2022, early 2023. And then I don't know if you guys remember when Silicon Bank crashed, and a lot of stuff with just crypto went down really bad. That was that April 2023, I think.
Yeah, I
remember?
believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, inevitably, our main bank was Silicon Valley Bank. But also, without sharing too much information, but I won't. But we put ourselves in a position that it was probably the first time where we became illiquid on the trading side, and things happened. Basically closing off the door for providing more funding to this project. Had to do a lot of organization shifts. A lot of things happened. But we felt promise in Tavern building, basically growing from the ashes of our other company. So we were like, let's double down. Let's try to go raise money externally for Tavern, and try to go from that, right? And so that's kind of what we've been up to for a year, while also just me solo deving on the project and expanding it. And and that's where we started thinking about, okay, well, we need to incentivize it with tokens. Started thinking about roots. Started also thinking about other protocols, which became Pose, that we could build, because again, VCs want a protocol. They don't want a social fi app. So it's really hard to pitch them on like, oh, we're gonna grow, and inevitably we can monetize. They're like, no, show us a protocol that backs all this stuff. And so we thought about this idea of like, it's this extracted user protocol where it's not based on a certain blockchain. It's actually connected to many chains. You can export your social network and your social graph and connect it to all your other places, because most people have multiple identities across different networks. I myself probably have freaking 10 different wallets, and they're all disconnected. I have to manage them in certain ways, right? So the idea was to like have a central place where you can sign all that, and you sign it on behalf of like a user model, right? Like so that it either be Twitter, Discord, an email like Gmail, or your Farcaster account even, right? And that's become obviously the most useful currently. Yeah, and so that's kind of caught us up to almost present time, where just doing a few things on Farcaster, and our goal was inevitably not to build something specifically for Farcaster. We were trying on a bunch of different things, and that's just what took off. And so now we're refocusing on, okay, how do we make Farcaster users have a better experience? And that's kind of like where we are right now, in terms of the whole product. And that was a lot. I talked a lot. I'm sorry.
Nah, you're good, man. You're good. Yeah, it's interesting that like the VC world, like it cracks me up that you're saying that like, they want to, I mean, it makes sense from their perspective why they want to invest in protocols, but like if you abstractly think about it, it's like, yeah, they want to bank on people building the next like email client or like, like
Yeah.
email network. And then, there's only so many protocols that can get built for there to be a bunch of winners, it's like, cool. We will only bet on email, but any company that builds like an email client or anything, peripherally associated with email, like we're not going to put money on that.
Yeah, it's like why Warpcast didn't really get funded. It was Farcaster, right?
Yeah,
It's a social
exactly.
protocol. I think that's what we had to position ourselves to develop, which is sort of the case. But I'm still against it. I still think products as products and not protocols can still exist and still be very profitable. If
Yeah, I
done
think
right.
right now they're mostly like they're probably looking for the big bets and the big wins. So
Yeah.
they're looking for the protocols. I'm sure once again, like let's say we have a socialfied protocol that's already taken off, it's gonna be very hard to build another one from scratch.
100%.
So
Yeah.
it'll be easier to build like an app or something or a product within that protocol, and then that's when the money will start trickling kind of downwards, I would say. But yeah, it's insane like to hear that because it's like, oh, like we only want to bet on like the biggest ideas, but hey.
And I think it's a different type of risk, right? And finding investors that meet with that. And usually it's ones that already sort of want to double down on a protocol. So if we say, hey, you're an investor in XYZ, whether that be Farcast or even Barachain, and we're saying, hey, we're going to build in that ecosystem, or people who only got slightly exposure. So a lot of people we talk to, the ones that are really interested, we're limited in their exposure, right? There's only so much money you could give these companies until it just gets stupid, which there's still stupid valuations going on anyways. So it's one of those things where, someone's like, well, man, I would have put in, $500,000 on this, but I could only get 50K edgewise. Those type of angel investors are really interested because we're building those ecosystems and they can get more exposure at a higher risk. And so that's the type of plays you have to get into, to be able to be, at least raise that initial funding, or not initial because we kind of had initial funding, but like the next round of funding.
Yeah. All right. So so it sounds like you've been in the space for a while and you've also been building and playing around with kind of Web3 or kind of like the next evolution of what the internet will look like for quite some time as well. And like you've been thinking about it, iterating. So bringing us to kind of present day with Tavern. So based on getting money from Polychain, you guys are exploring, Barachain, or you are going to work with Barachain. And Barachain in itself is actually really interesting. Like I hadn't even heard of Barachain until I spoke with you earlier in the spring, and went down this rabbit hole of kind of exploring it, and really good like branding and marketing for sure. Yeah, like I know I asked you this last week, but I think for the people that weren't here, like,
Sure.
What is the connection between like, Farcaster, Barachain, and all these wallets and identities? Like, I know you were mentioning about like somehow finding a way to like connect it all.
Yeah, absolutely. So inevitably we want to be this like layer zero for identity. is probably the best way to frame it. Where you're not really connected. So like a bridge, right? Except you're not tying financial assets through it. You're really tying identity and personal information, right? Or social information, whether it be your anonymous identity or your actual identity. And so we're not really wanting to be connected to a specific social protocol or any protocol, but we do have to have a registry if we want to do on-chain transactions on behalf of people. So we have to pick one. And we want to pick like some version of an L2 normally, right? And so like currently Tavern's written on Polygon, and to be able to test this stuff out. And at the time, I thought Matic was a really good vertical. I think that it was getting a lot of hype. You don't want to do something that no one's going to use or care about. And then obviously with Base coming on, I was like, oh, that's a really interesting one. But we got connected when we reapproached Polychain and had some friends who were pretty heavily exposed in terms of like them wanting, or talking about Bearchain. And I had heard about it through the NFT projects, but I hadn't really like dug into it. And I was like, oh shit, they're making like an L2. They're like, well, they're actually making like an L1. And I was like, what? I was like, no one makes L1s nowadays. And so I started digging into it and found it to be really community and future looking in terms of how does a group of people operate and govern a protocol like at the ground level, rather than it be like, oh, we have an Ethereum foundation where we have elected engineers and contributors, but it's not like you own Ethereum, you can't like really vote new additions. It's really hard. Just like in Bitcoin, it was really hard if you were just holding a bunch of Bitcoin to even contribute to it. And so I love this idea. And also their approach when you talk about marketing is just great because they already have this super feverish amount of interest. And they're really focusing it back on the community. I feel like if you go into all their discords, like if you read all their content, and when you even talk to them, you can get a sense that they really value the people who are helping build this thing rather than like, oh, we're just these adults in the room and we're just going to go top down and like, here's what we want to build. Which there are a lot of protocols that are like that. I mean, one of them that I still think is one of the smartest protocols to ever exist called Chia, which they call it greener Bitcoin. I think is genius. It's absolutely amazing. Written by, Bram Cohen, who's basically invented BitTorrent or torrent technology or like basically transmitting data decentrally. But it's just them making decisions. It has nothing to do with the community. And so it's basically fizzled off. I mean, I spent hundreds of thousands to actually mine Chia. And like, I literally, if you look at me, I'm in my study with like, I had to bring my miners out of a data center because it wasn't worth it anymore. And like, they're in my study and I turned them off recently. And like, I just have these massive servers that could be minting Chia. And I was like, nah, I'm over it. So I felt like it was a very different approach where it felt like building a community first and getting people just like feverish about it. And it doesn't have to be, again, a lot of these L1s don't even need to be better. They just have to have energy and a community behind it, right? I mean, and so I was like, okay, that's really interesting. And then again, our financial connections made sense to where, if we're going back and asking for money and we're saying like, oh, we're going to put our registry and some of our main stuff on Bearchain, then it makes sense. It has to be, and also the protocol has to be cheap because we're going to socialize gas cost and make it to where basically you as an end user doesn't need to know anything about crypto and could just show up and make transactions. And you're getting these things through our user abstracted wallet that's on Bearchain, but like you don't have to do shit, right? All the transactions are socialized through us and through the community. So that's kind of like the connection between it. Now, I don't think we've made 100% decision to build on Bearchain. I think it's still in flux, and we have time because they haven't launched their L1 yet. And we want to time with that as well. But I still think Base is a really good option. There are some opportunities as well. Like Monad is another L1 that's interesting. Also, just building an L3 on top of one of these others. It's like, oh, we'll just have our own protocol. I don't know if that's the the greatest thing to do, but it's definitely something possible, like Degen did, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of where we landed. And again, I go back to always still wanting to build a great product, not just put it on the right protocol. And that's why much more interested in still making something that works for people rather than incentivize use on some protocol, give them a bunch of tokens, and then go and build a product, which I'm pretty much against.
That makes sense. It's funny too, because like the late night crew, and just recently, like even Dan, I think when he joined, because that was like their second or third tavern that they've had, everyone was immediately like, whoa, this is actually like kind of nice and slick looking. And that's what kind of caught my attention when I first used Tavern too, because I think so I had access to like alpha access to like Farhouse back then.
Yeah.
I had used Arbura before. I don't think the Butterfly one had come out yet at that point. But I had seen all these other ones, and I used to frequent a Twitter Spaces for a while, and I really like Twitter Spaces. At least I like the idea. Like I've never really thought about, I don't know, social. Like I had used Clubhouse before and stuff like that, but I had never really thought about it for like Web3. So for like a while I've been really teetering about kind of building like a weekly like chat in addition to like the written stuff that I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the podcast. Yeah, like I think you remember when I was talking to you about it. So I was kind of exploring. I was like in my exploratory phase, and when I found the Nouns O'Clock group kind of having their tavern, I was like, oh, I've never heard of Tavern. So like when I clicked in and I came in here instantly, I was like, whoa, this is really nice. Like, and I think it's nice to see people are finally also appreciating kind of what you've built already. Like, yeah, it's nicely well done. So what was I gonna say? I can see where you're saying where like it's good to focus on a product, and the chain and all that, like, you know, you can figure out later, especially since you're not, you haven't made a decision and you're kind of stuck with that decision. You're kind of like you're building the product. I think you said you're getting close to like 2,000 active daily users or something like that, a little, or maybe
we're getting close to 2,000 active monthly users.
There you go. That's what it was.
Yeah, I was to say, man, if we're on 2,000 daily, that'd be sick. That'd be awesome. Great.
Yeah. No, it's okay. That's how many Farcaster has now.
Yeah. So, and I think again, it's like, to me, what do people care about first? If everyone is just trying to get tokens on a protocol and not using the app, then what do you have? I mean, like, you don't have anything. Like, sure, you can go and say, oh, we've got 10,000 people who own our token. And it's like, cool. Well, you could just easily have just airdrop that to whatever Farcaster accounts are popular and try to, incentivize it that way. But like, honestly, I'd rather show them activity in the app and how many taverns and how many people are joining those taverns, and the speakers that are going on. And then later, take that data and create a fair and contributing airdrop that makes sense for the people who are using the apps. And to me, that feels fair. So I feel like we still have time, because I still have, a lot of things that are on my priority list that I think do need to get built to hit that next, we call it the next chasm. Like, there's multiple chasms. Everyone says I don't know if you read that book, Crossing the Chasm, but there's always multiple chasms in building a product.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we got into a weird state where I got hit with this, this health stuff at the moment that a week or 2 weeks later, Tavern started kind of taking off way more than it was before. And so it was just sort of, I mean, maybe serendipitous, I don't know, but it was one of those things where I used to be able to code 12 hours straight and just pump out features, from a protocol level, from a product level, UX, UI, all that stuff. And now I'm down to, I was able to ship a few things last week, a couple hours each. I'll probably do the same thing this week, but I'm very much on a smaller capacity. But I'm getting even more and more features that are coming out from people who are using it now. So I'm in that weird state where, like, yeah, we absolutely are trying to close money as fast as possible to try to spin up a team to help deliver these. So it's kind of good, because I mean, obviously we can use the momentum and energy to go close the rest of our funding. But it sucks that I personally want to go deliver these, and it's just much harder than it was before.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's tough, man. Yeah, I think we can kind of, since you segued into it, like,
Okay. Let's take a quick break. I hope you're enjoying the episode. This episode was made possible with the support of my premium subscribers: Seattle Dog, Mag Vinyls, OG, Blue Crest, The Bluffer, Nonlinear, Brennen, Peachy, Inceptionally, Topos, and Tanny. Thanks again for your guys' support. Really appreciate it. It's always good to have a group of people that kind of support you and that are there to like bounce back ideas from and have kind of like a soundboard. So if you'd like to receive exclusive drops, access to token gated content or token gated chat, you're welcome to subscribe to my hyper sub. You get referral money back. You get revenue sharing as well. So a lot of good perks. So make sure to check it out. Thanks.
I mean, yeah, walk me through what happened on 4th of July of all
Yeah.
days too. Nuttiest thing ever, man.
Yeah, it was pretty insane. So supposedly, I have no recollection of this. I had woke up to let our dog out at I think like 7 a.m., 6:40 on July 4th. And I guess had passed out on the couch and I guess had a major seizure. Well, we assume that's what it was because when my wife woke up and found me, I had blood on my cheek, was completely unconscious from biting my lip and cheek. And so she called when she saw that and she couldn't wake me up. She called the EMS. They came pretty quickly. We live pretty close to downtown, so it was quite easy. They got there really quickly, or like first responders. They were able to finally like get me conscious, and then minutes later, I supposedly start having another seizure. And these are like these grandma tonic seizures that pretty much like you don't remember anything. They're pretty violent. And they're like, oh yeah, well we got to take him in. So they were able to take me in. I guess I had another one. So I'm having a flurry of these seizures, all the way to the hospital. They take me to the neurologist center. And again, I think I have another one in front of the neurologist, specialist. And they're like, okay, well, these are so dangerous. We have to basically put him in a medicated coma. So they do everything they have to do. Again, I don't remember any of this stuff. And I don't even really remember the day before all this stuff happened, like very brief memory of July 3rd. And kind of like leading up to that time. So they put me in a coma. I'm in a coma for 4 days. And then when I finally like kind of come to, they bring me up. It's just one of those things where I felt like I just see myself strapped in. I see charts. I kind of look over. I see my dad, my wife, and one of my best friends. And I felt like I was in an accident. Like I was like, oh shit. Like, was I in a car accident? Couldn't really speak, but I was just like super confused. And then my wife started explaining everything that happened. And I was like, oh my God. And then the doctors came in, tried to explain something to me, went over our charts, and then like showed me the MRI. And I was like, basically half my brain was like clouded in this edema. And then they focused on the actual tumor itself and basically explaining that, due to this inflation, due to this like, what was going on, you had these crazy seizures and blah, 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 blah. And so I was like, oh shit. And so that's like where we went through. I stayed in the hospital, basically recovering from being in a coma. Like you basically have to recover from, because you're on like fentanyl, you're on a bunch of crazy drugs. And you already have like quick atrophy. So I work out pretty much almost every single day. And I like could barely walk, even just 4 days in a bed. So it's like crazy that you have to go through kind of like a recovery program pretty quickly while you're in the hospital. I had a little bit of pneumonia I was recovering from because they had like a breathing tube and like a feeding tube. And so you go through all that stuff until that you basically tell them like, okay, I've got my memory, or like I can remember stuff. You have to like go through a test. That they give you a bunch of things. You have to like tell them like, what's the date? What's your name? Where are you from? Like, all that kind of stuff. And then they check all your vitals and stuff. And then once you do that, they'll release you. and then basically prescribe me like a bunch of anti-seizure. So really, what's causing me the most difficulty is the anti-seizure. So they put me on the max. So I'm on 1,500 milligrams of anti-seizure twice a day. And plus another drug, I forget what it's called, but it's pretty heavy from the research I have. Like most people don't go to that. I mean, I am a bigger dude, so I don't know if that plays a role in terms of weight, but like, or size, but I'm pretty much maxed out. And it definitely, when you take the drug, it creates like a haze. Like it feels like you're kind of hungover. Like you're not nauseous, but you feel like you can't really think. So cognitive function is pretty low. But this protects you from seizures, which is the main problem, right, with these tumors in your brain. So I've been going to like PT. I went to speech therapy, and basically from a lot of the symptoms they describe. So I had really bad motion sickness, really bad altitude sickness. I would have crazy bouts of nausea. If I drank, which I'm an idiot and still did, I would get really sick afterwards. I just thought it's one of those things where I guess when you're a Texan, again, this is going to be me throwing a bunch of stereotypes of Texans, which I think they're true. It's mainly a thing where like, don't be a bitch. Like, why are you complaining? You know what I'm saying? It was very much a machoism thing of like, don't complain if you feel bad, get over it type of deal. And I come from a very deep rooted Texas family. And so I was like, oh, like I never really thought these were problems that I should complain about because I would recover from them. Right. And so like, I never really said anything. I've had them for 15 years. And based on the slow growth of the tumor, they think I might have had the tumor like that entire time, where it was a grade 1, which is classified as more of a benign. So all brain tumors aren't benign. They're all growth malignant tumors. They just go really, really slow until they get into higher grades. So mine is a grade 2, which is pretty normal for my age. So they start as grade 1s when you can be very young. And then they just start to get, worse and worse over time. And they will always grow back, even if you were to surgically remove them, or, use chemo and radiation to remove them. They will inevitably resurface. They always do. Just the type of cancer it is. So anyways, it's kind of funny that I had gone out 2 days prior to July 4th, July 2nd for my friend's birthday. And we got completely trashed. I had, blackout levels of alcohol. And so we think that's actually what triggered it. So alcohol is one of the worst inflammations, for your brain, for your body in general.
Yeah.
And it just took that long to somehow trigger these seizures. Which is kind of funny because it maybe not saved my life, but like, maybe triggered it a bit early because some people don't know until they're like 40s and 50s and then turns into like a grade 3, grade 4 glioblastoma. And those are way worse. So yeah, it was very interesting to figure that out. And then recently, so last week, actually a week from today, Wednesday, I got the full pathology. So it took that long to get the pathology back. And this is like the genetic breakdown, the type of cancer. There's way more different types in the brain than there are anywhere else in the body. And they matter about your treatment. Luckily, I got one of the more promising ones in terms of the mutation types. So the IDH1, it's a oglio. I can't pronounce the full name. The only issue, and it's in my left frontal lobe. The only issue is the size is really big and it's infiltrating the terms of like, it touches a lot part of your motor, your memory, your speech to where it is inoperable. Well, from the Austin neurosurgeon, basically the brain surgeon. So he believes it's inoperable to get, and you never really want to do surgery unless you're pretty sure you can get more than 70%, or else it's kind of one of those things where it's like not risk. It's not worth the reward to remove it versus the risks, right? Because you could do a lot of harm on the brain cells themselves, right? Which can make my quality of life terrible, right? If I can't speak, I can't move, lapse of memory, a bunch of other triggers can happen. So that's the state we're in, where it is inevitably inoperable now from the current. I'm getting second opinions from other specialists that deal with brain cancer a lot more so than like the one in Austin, which has a good program. It's just not like the specialist program. But the exciting news is a drug had literally Tuesday last week had just been FDA approved, which targets the exact markers and mutations that my current cancer has. And it had been very high efficacy rates that you can take orally, which is great. And it has very low symptoms. And it's something that doesn't allow you to like walk back. Like some treatment types in cancer, and again, most of my family members, I kind of have a genetic disposition to cancer. Is if like you take a treatment, sometimes that locks the door to other treatments, where this one doesn't, which is really great. So so that's exciting news to be able to get on that program as soon as they have access to the drug. Basically, and once FDA approves it, then they work with the manufacturers, and then they work with the pharmacy, then they work with the healthcare providers in the U.S., and that can just take a bunch of time. He said probably the fastest it could go is like 3 to 4 weeks, but it could go a little bit longer than that. The only downside of having a pretty large inoperable tumor is that the drug normally the case studies, so the patients that were in the studies, all were post-op patients, as in they had already removed most of the tumor and then were taking this drug. Now, there had been cases of people being pre-operation with inoperable tumors and had some good signs, but it wasn't statistically significant to put in the data, right? You can't say like, we had some good cases in this category, but it, like, if you don't have enough patients, then you can't make any you're going to only say, anecdotal evidence from that, right? You can't say, there's any p-values that could relate. So I would be in this like outlier bucket, which I'm excited for because, contributing to medical science, I think is a really good thing. And, that brings meaning to what I have. And I've used that as a way to feel better about the whole situation. So being able to say like, I'm an outlier and I can contribute data to this drug and to the rest of the population, who take it later. So sorry, again, I talked for a long time, but that's kind of where things are right now.
No, you're good, man. It's a traumatic event. It's a thing that you're going through. Like you said, there's a lot of like silver lining to all that, like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like you said, like you caught it. Hypothetically, could you've caught it sooner? Sure. That's always like a thing, like that you could always get information sooner. But you caught it at the time that you caught it. And the drug just got approved as well. And like you said, they don't want to include, if they didn't have enough information on it, like it's better to not include it just because then they can get it approved. And then, it's kind of up to your doctor whether they give it to you or not. But like you said, like you're still contributing to the knowledge base of how this drug will work. Yeah, man, I'm rooting for you, man. Cancer is, I used to work in the cancer space, in the biotech space.
You were telling me, that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's tough, man. It's nuts. Like I remember, like the some of the cancer treatments or drugs that we would release, like we were the only one, and people were like, a couple of weeks is actually pretty good. Like we would get approved. One of the things that we a lot of biotech companies work on is like the moment it gets FDA approved, how quickly can you ramp up to sales?
Yep.
And like the capitalist pessimistic person in the world is like, yeah, of course, like they just want to get their money. And it's like, no, like there's people's like lives on the line. Like,
dude, 100%. I mean, there are people been waiting for this drug for like multiple years. They've heard because they were able to not go through the case study because it's sometimes really hard where they are. But yeah, so I feel bad.
Yeah. Kind of going with that, like, yeah. So like, I know you've had that, like the medicine's been like fogging up. You're not able to code as long. I mean, it's fine. I feel like it's tough because I'm sure like you're used to just cranking out like, for 12 hours in building. But do you think it's almost made it, again, going back to that silver lining, do you think it's made it like where you're clearer on like, what features to work on or what requests or what bugs? I mean, like bugs, obviously, I'm sure are like if they're P0s or P1s, you're gonna have to work on them immediately. But like, like, do you think it's giving you a little bit of like that, like you're better at kind of assessing what needs your time versus someone else's time, or what's important and what's not important?
Maybe a little bit. I don't know yet, because it's one of those things where my personality and what I've been doing for the past 14 years of my life is just coding. Like this is the longest, the 40 days I went before I submitted my first like a code edition was the longest time on two things. One, it was the longest time since I drank, which is great. Now I'm like 100% dry. So that was like a big achievement. But on the other side, it was the longest time I've ever gone without shipping code. And so it's just one of those things where it's just so different than what I'm used to, where I'm like, oh, I'll just fucking just code bust this out, just done. And so you're right. I mean, I have to think more about, okay, how do I optimize time for now? It's different if I were to get a team, and then I feel like I could, chess out my plays. But it's just so hard, because I was like, if I were to get all my hours back, I'd be like, I could get all these features done in like a week, like everything that everyone wants right now. And that hurts. It's like, it feels like you get to the gym and you're so used to throwing up, like, let's say, 400 on squats or deadlifts or whatever, and you can only put on like 20-pound weights. And you're like, oh, that's what it feels like. It feels so bad. And that's all you can do. So it's just one of those things where it just hits the ego pretty hard.
Yeah. Have you thought about because I know I saw I'm gonna probably butcher his name, Jitji, JTGI.
Oh, the Nanar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was like, offering to help. Like, have you thought of like maybe, using bounty like caster, or like some kind of
The problem is I wrote this code base as like my personal project hackathon code base. I just kept building on top of it. So I'm so embarrassed to open source it and allow contribution like on a bounty cast. It is not in a great state. And it was one of those things where I wait till we hit some sort of scale, which is now, to then go back and start to figure out how to basically put the code base in a reconcilable way for new contributors to come on. And it is not in that state. We could try it, but I feel so bad for anyone even attempting to jump on. And that's where I think if we were to finish raising money, then I could just focus on getting, the first thing is like, okay, we have to refactor the code base so we can scale first, and scale development time. Then start to move into, okay, we can then start using the community to be contributors and open source the entire. The whole goal was to get to a point where completely open source. I just didn't think that the numbers that we had were meaningful enough to do that. And maybe I should have made it open source from the get-go, but then I'm just like so embarrassed by how my code looks that I probably would never ship. Or if it's just me looking at the code base, I'll ship fucking often and early, because I don't need to be embarrassed. So it's that catch-22 model. But you're right.
Yeah.
We need to get to that point.
No, I mean,
where the community
that makes sense. I understand that. I don't. Not saying you have to open source everything, but totally get like, even if you let someone in, you're like, this room looks like a mess, but it all makes sense to me and like how it's organized, because I organized it like in what makes sense to me. And trying to explain to someone else like the madness that is your brain. Like you might spend more time trying to get them up to speed to make sense of it all, than actually them contributing. So yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I saw that and I was like, man, like just do a bounty and give out some roots or something, and then see if anyone want to help.
I think that inevitably is our first goal, is get to the point where the community becomes massive contributors, and that there's great incentives lined up to producing those contributions, right? Yeah. So I definitely know that's part of my passion to get to that point. Right now, the biggest thing is that bug, that 2-hour bug, which make sure we're not going to hit. So going back and forth with our third-party provider, which basically provides like the audio syncing, like the live streaming platform because we didn't build that from the ground up. We want to, and I tried initially, but it was so hard to like scale it correctly. And also I wanted to do it on decentralized nodes, but then how do you prove that what you're serving is, and then you're like building a BitTorrent network on streaming audio. And we want to get to that. That's like the final goal. I was like, oh, let's just use Agora, who's scaled a whole bunch of different services around the world. But we're using their legacy code. And I didn't realize that they had changed to this V2, which does look way better. And I think can provide us some really dope stuff once we convert. But they said they basically were like, we think it's a legacy issue. We don't want to contribute any talent, like basically any engineering sources to fix your problem. So you need to update to V2, and that's it. Like we just got that back yesterday. So that's what I'm trying to figure out is like, okay, how hard or how long is it going to take to basically update their legacy code to the V2 code? So that's like the biggest thing on my mind is just get that there, and then add chat. People want the fucking chat.
Yeah.
Which is so funny because I purposely delayed the original chat code because I was like, why am I adding chat? Everyone's got chat everywhere, right? Like there's chat on Discord, there's chat on Twitter you can link, there's chat on Farcaster. And I was like, I don't want to do chat. I want to first solve audio. But I didn't realize that people really do love that simultaneous audio chat all in one. And I was like, you know what? I missed that. So I'm thinking about that, but I also want to make it where it feels more novel, which is why it took longer to deploy before all this went down. Because I also felt like I don't want to cannibalize the chat that could happen on Farcaster. Like some of the late night stuff, or even the Nouns Town Square, a lot of the discussions still happen in Farcaster because you can't say it in the tavern. And you lose that social signal where I think a lot of people found the late night one because people were talking about the tavern. And if there was no way to broadcast, and they weren't using Farcast or Warpcast to do that, then I think it would have been a much smaller tavern. So I want to do something where it's like combined, where you can choose to just chat, or you can choose to basically auto. If you come in from Farcaster, we have your token enough to basically publish to Farcaster on the channel you're coming from. And so doing more interesting things like that to keep signal very high, but also allow you to still chat quickly in the tavern itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you could even take the approach of like Alpha Friends where if something like in the chat when it's going back and forth, like the bar, if you're like, oh, this would be a good one to like, share on Warpcast.
Yeah.
They have it on Alpha Friends where you could share, like you said, like it basically posted actually to Warpcast. And then people are able to see like, for Alpha Friends, it's like token gated, but for your case, it could be like, like join the conversation or whatever. Like,
yeah. So there are cool ways, but I also don't want to make it spammy. Yeah. So it's like one of those things where I don't know. I'm a stickler for not making things feel spammy. So, yeah, but exactly that, like something that's more embedded. We're also looking at, and found a way to finally embed into Twitter Spaces and to YouTube streaming, live streaming on YouTube, where we can intake and republish simultaneously to both those platforms all in one stroke, which is quite nice. So you can turn on YouTube Connect and Twitter and connect to it and then publish to both at the same time. So we're trying to like work on that because again, one of the biggest things for us and obviously is get signal as loud as possible for folks. So once we go to V2, get chat, I think one of the big things we want to do is just have bigger and better broadcasting for folks that are creating taverns.
Yeah. No, that'd be dope. I think you would get a lot of crossover, like people could like it, I mean, obviously it brings your name out more, like,
yeah,
it's native over there. And then they're like, hey, what's this tavern thing that it's showing or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And people can then just choose if they want to, or just stay tavern. Who cares? Right.
Exactly. Yep. Kind of speaking about, these other tools and the chats and all that. So obviously a lot's changed since like we've talked back in May, personally and product wise.
Yeah.
And with the space as a whole, like degen went up and now it's like down a shit ton.
The nature of all tokens.
Exactly. But yeah, I was gonna ask you, is there anything you've now that like Farhouse has been out for a while, Butterflies also come out, Arbora is like on V2 now as well. Is there anything that you've learned or observed kind of from those other apps and that might help you with your vision here in Tavern? Like either things you could borrow or things you're like, oh, I don't want to do that because that doesn't sound, like Tavern.
Yeah, I'm going to be contrarian to a lot of people who build products and are founders where they go study every competitive app. I actually do the opposite. I feel like it puts you into a box of creativity. And you might not think the same way if you go study those. Also, I think it takes a lot of time to really understand those apps, regardless of the lack of information. Um, I'm more of like a kind of a gut experience. It's like I want to build something that I would use, and I want to do that first. And then only when you're trying to min max the product experience is when you can start to go look. And I don't think we're anywhere close to min maxing the experience that I want to first present. So I'm going to tell you, I haven't used any of those, not a single one. Haven't even looked at them. Not because I'm saying that they're not worth it. I mean, they're great. I'm sure they're great apps and products. That's just sort of the way I build. Unfortunately, and I do the same thing. I'm also a game developer as well. That's like my biggest passion. Video games, but mainly tabletop games. I do the same thing. I mean, I play a bunch of games, but I try to not go study. If someone's like, "Oh, you should really go look at this game. It's kind of similar," and I'm like, "Well, maybe I'll just build what I want to build and then see what the crossovers are." Unless it's like some absolutely god amazing game that someone's like begging me to go play. But yeah, I just think that's been my kind of philosophy, and maybe it's a terrible philosophy because I've never had a product reach any sort of massive adoption. So maybe it's been the wrong thing all this whole time, but it's just, I don't know. I find it boring and kind of tedious to go do those rather than just build something.
No, that makes sense to me. I think like you're right. Like if you go look at other products, then it sort of limits your creativity. Like you're only thinking about you versus them or how your product relates to them, but it doesn't really fully like, so you've already kind of constructed a box for your creativity as opposed to, on here, you could be like, oh, what would be really cool? Like people are talking about chatting, but like, what if you could draw together or something, like something completely novel, like that no one's even ever thought of. And then that's the thing that like, takes you to the next like level. And, if you were just like, oh, like they're doing tipping, they're doing this, like, oh, I should do tipping, I should do this. Like, you would have never really thought about, fuck it, we're drawing together, guys. Like,
well, like I was just talking to the Polymarket guy because he came on to the Trump Elon interview that we did on Monday. And I was like, holy shit, this works so well. Like there's some really cool discussions with the bets. I was like, what if I could consume what they're doing and like make you not tipping, but like get Polymarket done first? Like, how can we integrate these communications? And also selfishly, I actually wanted, one of the first things I wanted was to handle politics, open discourse and communication on governance. Starting with DAOs, but I actually really wanted, and at a time we started talking to the political parties and lobbyists, but they wanted us to pay so much money to even them contribute. Like we actually had some inroads to like RFK, but they wanted like 100K just to have RFK on a Tavern, right? And we're like, no, we're not gonna pay 100K. You just come on because you think it's a useful technology, right? So like it's one of those things where Polymarket is such a cool crypto avenue to get into politics without getting into politics. And the communications about people just coming together. It's like going to a Vegas casino and making bets like on racing or sports games. They always have these lobbies, or even go into like a crap stable or blackjack. There's definitely these really cool just conversations that could come out of that. Mostly when people stake and are staking, like significant amount of money or not, or just playing around. But I don't know. So like that's like, I think, very different and could be really cool. But yeah.
You know what's funny about that? Going back to like thinking outside the box and not like limiting yourself to what other projects are doing, but like I'm noticing like more people are doing taverns or spaces, like commentary. It's kind of like the Eli Manning and the Payne Manning approach of like, like we have the Super Bowl and
Yeah.
neither of their teams are, in the Super Bowl, but they're going to do like live commentary with their community while watching this thing together.
Yeah.
And that happened with like TED with like
Yep.
the debate and all that. And then there was like on Polymarket, there was like what tampon.
Yeah.
So like, wouldn't it be kind of funny if you had like an integrated Polymarket frame, or I don't even know what you call it, and all the people that are waiting for Trump to say the word tampon? I mean, I could only imagine like if you were all in a spaces just chatting, like commentary and stuff like that, and then the thing that everyone's betting on, which is for them to say tampon, the chat and the thing would be hysterical, like
Dude, exactly. And it
people would
hits
go off.
and everyone's going off. And I think having this integration, because Polymarket doesn't want to go build a social network or a social audio platform, and we don't want to go build a betting platform.
Exactly.
But when they're layered together, it's kind of this cool experience that feels kind of dope, and is very relevant. I mean, yes, they're memes and yes, they're jokes, but at the same time, it's still governance and it's politics, and I think more people should be talking about that out loud. And so I don't know. I find it a very interesting crossover that could be really fun.
Yeah. I mean, I know we talked about this too, like token gating, and even like, I think me and you, I'm pretty sure it was with you. We were talking about like minting that you were there as well, like a POAP kind of thing.
POAPs, yeah.
I mean, I think that would be hysterical. Like,
that's technically all built. It's just all on Polygon, and I just don't have it to like. I just turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like it'd be kind of cool because like if you did the tampon one as an example, like
yeah, you were there when the tampon.
You were there when you were at the spaces when tampon was said. So like now you have an on-chain like street cred that you're Absolutely. Like, okay, so even if you didn't bet on the Polymarket, like you didn't have skin on the game in terms of like putting money on Polymarket, and like that's all verifiable as well. You can at least be like, look, I was in the spaces when it went down. Like, I don't know. 100%. That seems kind of hilarious too.
Yeah, those are the funny cross sections that I like Tavern to be. Tavern, like I don't know. I think Web3 is better when it's just more fluid and just flexible. And so that's kind of what I want to build and make sure we keep that going in a weird way.
Yeah. So being conscious on some time, and sure. I don't think we're gonna hit the 2 hour rug. We're good on our end.
Yeah, we're good.
I think you kind of alluded this to a little bit, like, but I guess I wanted to dive into a little bit more. But what are the biggest challenges you're facing right now? Is it really like, like you only have 4 hours to code? People are asking for new features. Like, what do you think is the biggest thing that you're facing right now, challenge wise?
Yeah, I mean, devs is always a problem. Like anytime, just getting more effort, and it usually wasn't a problem because I could handle quite a bit of load. But obviously, recently is much more challenging. So to mostly to handle the momentum, because the moment you stop, the momentum can die out. Like if you just don't deploy the right features, late night crew could just be like, nah, well, we're less interested in what y'all have because it's taken so long to deploy. Now it doesn't mean you lose them forever if you come back and have something. And I think that's a struggle. Also, if you deploy too fast, so you have the other struggle where if you deploy too fast, like let's say I was actually in a perfect state and I was deploying. Well, if I deploy prod really quickly and I ruin the experience, as in like everything breaks and no one can make taverns, which obviously does happen sometimes when I deploy, then that's even worse because now people can't even use the core experience. Because I haven't really built a huge testing framework because I don't really do that until I feel like something's going to scale. And so it's one of those things where it's two challenges of the same coin that you have to be careful. And I rather do the what I call I don't know if you've ever played the game No Man's Sky. It's like a video game
Yeah.
where the developers teased out some ideas and they said they will make them. But when they shipped, I still think it was a good game, but it didn't have anything near what they were kind of promising. But what they did is they actually spent tirelessly, like what it was, 6 years, and deployed everything that they promised, plus went even further and deployed even more and worked on the game where updates were free. There is no you pay the base game, you get all the updates for, which was, very unusual. But they did own their own independent studio, so they could do that. And it became the most successful game ever. Like not ever, but like it became one of the top 10 successful games, I think, in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Because they did that. And I want to be an app like that where it's like, hey, these are the things we're going to build, and it might take some time. So we might lose a little bit of momentum early, but we will deploy these things if possible. And I've already made a contingency plan with our team in terms of the actual founders and investors, and be like, we can get this to stability and it's not going to cost that much. And can really maintain that forever. And I can just work it on a passion project. I mean, I am in a situation where, with crypto, that I don't need to like work a full-time job, and can still work on passion projects. So it's not something that I need to do. So it's one of those things where, I want Tavern to succeed regardless of the situation. So it's not something where I even ever want to turn down the servers. I'll just minimize and spend time slowly working on the features that I want, even if it takes me another year or 2 years, right?
Yeah. So is Elementop and the whole like original group that's working on the finance stuff, are they still around and working?
I don't know what I'm legally allowed to say, but I'm going to say no.
Okay.
So they are technically an investor in Pose Inc., which is the main now corporation that launched Tavern.
Got it.
So
yeah, I was mostly curious, like if you were getting
Yeah.
pulled over, like
No,
technical,
due to other issues that I had warned before I went full time on Tavern. That's a whole nother story that I hope comes out. It's like a 2-hour, 3-hour story of what went down. It's pretty nuts, actually. It's kind of funny, but not funny at the same time. But yeah, so the investors are exposed to Tavern and Pose, pretty much pro rata. So, I think actually even bumped up, to basically give them, since we're not growing Elementop anymore, really Elementop just becomes this proxy company to get investment into Pose and Tavern, while still trying to raise money for Tavern as well. It's a very complicated mess, which is why I don't want to handle it. And I'm glad Assad, my co-founder, is able to handle it and structure those contracts.
Yeah. No worries, man. Once the legacy Agora gets upgraded, then we'll spend the 2 hours plus talking about it.
Yeah, I wonder when I'm allowed to. If we raise funding, maybe I'm allowed to talk about what went down. But it is a very it's a long yet interesting story.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I was trying to get an understanding if you were getting pulled in by multiple companies for like your technical expertise, but it sounds like no.
I mean, personal. I mean, there's always personal, and I have already shared this. So, like, I do digital art as well. So I've made like ordinals. I was pretty early on to ordinals, so I've done a bunch of ordinal projects. Can actually share one of my top ones.
Yeah, please do, man. I'm deep into ordinals. I love ordinals.
Oh, fuck yeah! But like, I own, ordinal punk, ordinal shroom.
You got a shroom?
Yeah, my shroom's fucking dope. It's a pink chair.
Let me see the shroom, dude.
Yeah, dude, it's a
I'm
good
bullish
one.
I'm bullish on the shrooms, dude.
Oh, dude, absolutely. I've thought about going complete shroom, but I mean, my noun is like, I really love my noun. But yeah, so I did this thing. I call it deterministically infinite on-chain art. So I took the squiggle pattern, and I was really, I love squiggles. And I love, what was built through our blocks.
Oh, you
And
worked on Ordinals?
yeah, so I was the main dev on it, but I was like they end so early, like just the fade. And I've worked with P5 for a very long time, and I was like, we can do something way better. And I wanted to. This was early on when no one's really found a way to compress and like reuse, JavaScript libraries from the different ordinal collections. And so and this is before recursion was made, where it became really
Yeah,
easy. So
exactly.
we trimmed down and cut out everything from the paintbrushes needed to create squiggles, but then we animated it all. And then I used hashing hashes to create an infinite series with each squirnals with some family traits. So it basically just makes this infinite squiggle that's fully animated. So that was kind of like my contribution. And then we put it on Bitcoin, which I thought was more serious because it's not like, stored on IPFS or anything.
Yeah, exactly. I know, man. That's where I've been really kicking the idea of like starting a like fully on, because like it really irks the crap out of me that the Coinbase is just so good at branding and like marketing at this stage. But like they're like, oh, on chain summer, on chain this, but like to me, on chain is like no dependencies, like I'm fully on chain art. Like even my photography is fully on chain
Nice.
right now. And like I just personally believe in that. It just makes sense. Like I totally get not everything can be fully on chain because it's very cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
But I just really like on chain art, and I'm like, dude, I think we need like a DAO for like fully on chain art. Luckily, nouns are kind of like that.
Dude, exactly. There's a lot more on chain. I mean, they're the most on chain DAO. So to
That's
start with that,
1000%. Yeah. So that's kind of what stopped me from going down that path. But I was like, we need to, like if you're familiar with Efficax, or did. Yeah, so I was like, when he was like, I need money to do V2 of his tooling, I was like, dude, there has to be some group of people that care. Luckily, Nouns stepped up, so I was like, that's what got me to pay attention to Nouns.
Oh, nice. Yeah, hell yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, I was like, maybe I just need to get a Noun because it seems like they're all about this. But it looks like they do a ton of other stuff too. So I was like, okay, maybe like a subset or something. I don't know, but that's really cool, man. And everyone that's not into NFT or fully on chain art is like, what the fuck are these guys talking about?
Exactly. And again, I've always been a Bitcoin maxi, even though I was in the pre-sale for Ethereum and had put a lot of my life on Solidity and building smart contracts, but I still was like, Bitcoin's the future still as the main gate. And it hurts Ethereum maxis when I say that the ratio between like the ETH BTC ratio is going to keep going smaller and smaller, but which we have actually seen recently. But I so when ordinals came out and Casey kind of came out with this theory, I was like, holy shit, this is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see it manifest. So I wasn't like the earliest. I wasn't there in the first, but like, I mean, 2 months later, I'm jumping into it late February. So it's like one of those things that was like early enough, but yeah. So, and then I was like, wait, I'm going to build shit on this protocol.
I feel like for me, it was like, I had seen that like, what's the term that people use for ETH? Like, legacy NFTs, like like the really early NFTs.
Yeah.
I forget what the term that people use, ancestry NFTs or whatever. Like only like very few actually are still relevant, like punks. But everything else, just because it's like, and CryptoKitties, I guess, but like even they're down like substantially. Who knows about the future or whatever, but I saw like the potential of ordinals like very early too, like you said, but like I wasn't really rushing to go buy anything just because it was under 10,000 first ordinals. Like I was like, whatever. Like it hasn't worked well for ETH, so I was like, I suspect it won't mean shit for BTC as well. Minus crypto shrooms, I think. So yeah, like the theory and like the tech behind it, I was like, dude, this is nuts. Like I don't know, like the nerd in me was like, yeah, this is dope. And I'm glad to see more artists have taken it more serious too. And I think kind of at least the circles that I run in, the current thinking is, like very premium art NFTs will be either ordinals or ETH layer 1. Especially as ETH gets like more and more expensive to start minting on. And then kind of like the Zoras and the base and like the free mints are like, I don't know. I don't want to say like not real art, but like, it's just like a different type of
It's just like prints,
different
right?
behavior. Yeah, it's like
like
print.
as
It's a
an
different
artist,
behavior.
I
Yeah.
can only paint so much. And if people love my piece, prints are still really popular, right? I mean, mainly actually a lot of money going to artists actually comes from prints, right? If you get popular enough.
Yeah.
So that's how I explain it, where I'm like, all these L2s and even things on Ethereum are great for this mass printing of these pieces. But if you're looking at a one of one, it has to be on chain. So that's like terraforms on Ethereum. I'm a huge fan
Oh
of a bunch of
yeah.
terraforms. Or they're on ordinals, right? And
Yeah.
so that's where I see. I'm also a huge traditional art collector as well. That's how I got into NFTs, is because I was already collecting a whole bunch of art. And actually, where I spent most of my Bitcoin, it was much easier to convince galleries and artists to accept Bitcoin back in like 2017, 16. And so it was just kind of funny. Now those pieces are worth way more than I spent back then than they are today on the open market. But some of them were good bets. But yeah, so I feel the same way. And again, that doesn't demean base NFTs or and stuff like that. It's just a different market, right? It's a different placeholder.
Oh,
Like that's why their
100%.
co-ops are so good, is I still think those are meaningful. Like, a badge at a concert that you got, that everyone got, but you kept it and no one did, 10 to 20 years later is very meaningful, right? As an artifact of the time.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I mean, even X copy has shown us that base editions, you could still make millions.
Yeah. Yeah. He's definitely found the pattern to make it. I mean,
yeah. His fully on-chain art collection, though, oh my god. Dude.
Yeah.
Oh. I'm trying to collect every single piece that comes out of that collection because
that's dope.
That will stand the test of time.
No, very true.
Yes. Let's see. Yeah, I think we're close to wrapping up. If Jeff or Noctazuma, if you guys want to come up and ask one question, we can. If not, we can go to the last question, the hardest questions of all. I'll give you some background on that question in case you're like, why the hell is this question on here? Especially because we want to stay under the 2 hours. But all right, we'll proceed then. So initially when I got started with this a long time ago, again, I'm telling you, dude, like I come up with these ideas for names, and Elementop is definitely way cooler than anything I've come up with. So initially, I was like, my whole gist of my weekly newsletter is to, it's like a recap of what happened in Web3, and it's less than 10 minutes. Like that's always the goal, is less than 10
nice.
minutes. And so it's always been like snacks. I didn't want to call it like bite-sized news or snacks or whatever. So me being the Spanish person that I am, I was like, pinchos. I don't know if you know what pinchos are, but they're like tapas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're from the Basque region where like my ancestry's from.
Oh, yeah.
So for the longest time, I called my newsletter and my podcast Pinchos. And so one of the questions I've been asking everybody is, for everything that I've done, is like, hey, what's your favorite snack? And that's the one thing I've kept. I'm like, so I've changed the name a couple times now on the podcast and the newsletter, but we keep this one question for that reason. So yeah, what is your favorite snack?
Ooh. Man,
it's tough though, right?
It's changed, but I man, favorite snack. I'm trying to think, because my wife is kind of a sycophant on getting snacks without the bad oils and good natural ingredients. So she's removed all my classic ones that were terrible for you to eat. So I don't. I'll maybe I'll pick a new age one, but there's these these chips. God, I always forget what they're called though. But they're literally just like the most natural sweet potato chips, actually, which I love sweet potatoes. But it's sweet potatoes, salt, and avocado oil, and that's it. It's like those three ingredients. That's all it is. And they're addicting tasting. If you like sweet potatoes. But man, I just finished the last bag, but I forget what they're called. They're just huge bags. You can get them on Costco, which is crazy because Costco's like, I think Costco's finally adopting like a new age approach to food.
Yeah.
Like where they're adopting a lot of these niche brands and like helping them grow, but they're like really good ingredients. I'm also a huge promoter of Costco. I think it's an amazing place. But I forget what they're called. But those are really addicting. Yeah, I would say that's probably the thing I snack on the most.
All right, you're gonna have to send me the name for them because
I know I'm trying to.
My wife's on the same. My wife's on the same kick too. Like, no canola oil, no sunflower oil, unless it's like expeller pressed or whatever. Yeah, it's hilarious. These
someone's gonna have Jackson. Here we go. They sit right here. I found it on the Costco website. I'm linking it. Buy these, absolutely phenomenal. Just super delicious.
Oh, these look fire.
Dude, they're insane. All
right.
And they're so addicting.
I'm gonna get a bag of those.
For a little picture. They're just great. So I would say this is it. Other than that, any sort of popcorn is delicious, bad or good. I'll eat popcorn for days.
Do you guys have? I didn't realize this was like a very niche thing to where I live, but do you guys have kettle corn at your movie theaters?
Oh yeah, some movie theaters will have it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
like I didn't realize. Sweeter. Yeah.
I didn't realize that was a thing. Like it wasn't a thing. Sorry. Like all the movie theaters near me, kettle corn. And then I went out of town one time, like to, I forget where. And then I was like, I showed up to the movie theater and I was like, yeah, you guys got kettle corn? And they're like, we're not at the fair. I was like, what? You guys don't have kettle corn at your movie theater?
What kind of shit is this? Yeah, no, that's very true. I feel like regionally things are just way more common, and then you go somewhere else and you're like, wait, this doesn't even exist here.
Yeah. I had the same thing happen with mimosas too. I think like here in California, we're used to having like mimosas with like
everywhere. Yeah.
Well, like different fruits too, like passion fruit, like, you know, and then I forget where I was. I was like somewhere in the South and I was like, what kind of juice do you have with like for this mimosa? And they're like, just what? It's just orange juice. Like, we don't understand your question. And I was like, oh, okay, my bad.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope that I hope everything works out with the cancer, man, or the tumor. Like that's rough, man.
Well, we'll do it. I got a really great support system. Real life people, friends, family, but also strangers online. I mean, that's why I really believe in internet tribalism, is that you can really generate maybe the best friendships and kinships that you can possibly find, because there is no regional filter. It's literally anyone, anywhere in the world. And I think that can create better bonds. And I've always been very supportive of that. And I've had some amazing relationships form over the past decade through crypto. So yeah.
Awesome. Yep. So thanks everybody for joining. Those that left as well, thanks for joining. To recap, I'll edit this and upload it to pod so everyone can listen to this at their own leisure. Make sure to follow Brennen, Tavern. Send your feature requests and suggestions to them. Be kind. Yeah, man. Thanks again. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
All right, you too. Bye.
All right. See you guys.
All right. Welcome back. So before we log off, this week's cast off, and for those that are new to my podcast or my content, cast offs where I want to hear from you. So this week's episode cast off question is: should we start a weekly spaces on Tavern? Let me know. Just reply back to me wherever is easiest for you. Warpcast, Twitter, Telegram, potato. So if you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. Thank you for that. If you're listening from another platform other than Pods, make sure you go collect this episode. And if you are on Pod, make sure to subscribe from your favorite podcast app so you're notified when I drop episodes. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Definitely be tipping DGen, for people that can show this or approve it. Please share this that you think might be interested in this topic. Let me know if there's any specific people or topics you'd like me to cover in the future. You can get in touch with me. Again, whatever's the easiest. Yeah, see you next time. Take care.